Hi and welcome to another episode of PeaceMeg TV. In today's Reaper video we're going to follow on from the previous video where we replaced our normal drum kit sounds with some MIDI samples. We're going to take a look at this time moving away from MIDI and actually replacing it with real live samples. We're not using this in this particular instance to completely replace the live drums. We're just using it there to augment the sound of those and give them a little bit more punch to come through the mix. Now what I'm working on is a live gig that I recorded recently, so we're really limited on mics. There's just a kick drum mic and a snare drum mic, guitar and bass. Bass is DI'd, and the vocals go through the mixer. So it's a very simple sort of setup, but if you're recording in a studio, you're probably going to find you're going to get a much cleaner separation between your drums because you're going to be using, more than likely, additional mics on the kit. But the technique will work regardless. One of the beauties of this is you can actually take your drum track and you can build it up of multiple different samples and then mix those together to give you a hybrid sound that'll, give you a lot more control over what you're trying to achieve to give you a much better sounding kit. If yours was a little bit dry, a little bit dull, you wanted to punch through a little bit better. So let's see how we can do that in Reaper. Okay, so I've got my session open. You can see on the right hand side I've got my media browser and I've already gone through to where my drum samples are. And what I've also done is I've created a blank track which I'm going to use to duplicate my kick drum sound. So all I'm going to do is control drag to create a copy, and if I just solo that out you can have a little listen to what I can hear. So we've just got the kick building up, and you can probably hear the snare is bleeding into this in the same as it did in the first video. We're using the same sample. So what we need to be aware of when we're working with this particular example is that we've got to try to avoid the snare bleeding through, because we don't have the flexibility we had with MIDI. We may end up with triggers that we don't really require. It's not difficult to get rid of them. We can just delete any of the samples we don't want. We can adjust things like that. I mean, that's the beauty of Reaper. So let's take a look at how we do this. So first thing I'm going to do is press D on my keyboard to bring up my dynamic split items. And if you didn't see the previous video, I'd recommend going to take a look at that where I explain this a little bit more detail. But effectively what we're doing is we're looking at where the transients are on this particular drum track, and we're using those then to cut this into relevant different chunks. Now you've also got some other options on here. If we take a look at the minimum slice length, you'll see we can adjust that. And when we're working with MIDI, this isn't really important because the slice length is irrelevant. We're just using MIDI triggers. But when we're working with samples, we need to take care with this, because if we have it too short, as you can see right now, we've got just tiny little slices, we're going to find that all that's going to happen is we're going to chop off the end of our sample and end up with a really crazy sort of weird sound. So if you have the scope for this, just adjust the minimum slice length to give you a little bit more scope for your sample. Now I'm working with a very quick sample, a sort of electronic kick drum that's just going to give that extra bit of punch. So I don't need a huge tail going off on my transients, but you have that functionality if you need it just by using the minimum slice length. Adjust your reduced split section until you get only what you want. Like I say, you're going to find that in this instance I've got some bleed through from the snare. So I'm just working with to find that fine balance between the what I'm looking to achieve and what I've got to work with. So this looks pretty good to start off with, so I'm just going to say split, and that's created our little splits in this particular sample. So all I need to do now is find the sample that I want to replace these with on the right hand side in my media browser, and I'm going to use this PR kick. So if I just click on that sample, you can see, if you look at the waveform at the bottom, it's very quick attack on it. So that's a perfect example of not needing too much space. So all I need to do is right click and say use media source for selected items, and what that's going to do is we're going to replace all of these chopped up samples from the original source, replace them with this particular sample. So I hit that, and you can see now they've all been adjusted to give me just that sample. Very quick and easy. So if we listen to that now on the solo track, just head back. You can see, let me just solo that out as well, take that off. we've got very quick clicky attack. So now we can just use that to blend in with the live kick drum. So I just solo the two of these, so I'm only getting those to work with. Then hopefully what you can see is, or what you can hear is, that we get a little bit more attack now with the kick drum. So we're getting just a bit more sort of information to kind of cut through the mix. So let's just pass with the two together. Let's take the sample kick out. So hopefully what you can hear on this is that we're getting a much better attack on there. Let's bring in the snare drum, and let's actually bring in all the drums. So let's try that. Probably a little overkill at the moment, so all we need to do is just bring that down to mix the two together. So let's just solo out just my kick and the sample kick. So bring that up a little bit more, just kind of losing it a bit there. And there we go. So hopefully what that's shown you is how easy it is to go in and either replace it with MIDI, which I did in the previous video, which you can then edit and do whatever you want with, or in this instance to replace it with real life samples and then mix the two together to give you the best of both worlds, where you're getting a nice extra attack or whatever kind of effect you want to apply to it. Then you can then go in and you can adjust and you can EQ and you can all the normal things you want to give you just the drum sound that you're looking for. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you have, please subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button below, it really helps us out. And if you've got any comments or feedback on this or any of the other videos we produced for the ReaperTV channel, please by all means comment in the section below. And if you've got anything you'd like to see in future videos, again, just leave me a comment, drop me an email, and I'll be more than happy to take a look at creating future videos for you. Until next time, happy producing and take care.